It happened at the family barbecue, the one where everyone pretended to be happy but kept their smiles sharp enough to cut. The smell of grilled corn and ribs filled the air, kids were laughing by the pool, and I was sitting at the edge of the table, scrolling through design drafts on my phone. That's when my dad decided to make a show out of me. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. He lifted his beer, cleared his throat, and said loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Emily, you're 24. If you can't pay rent this month, move out. Everyone froze. Even the music felt like it stopped mid-beat. I looked up, half expecting it to be one of his tough love jokes. But no, he meant it. His smirk said everything. You're not serious, I said quietly. Oh, I'm dead serious, he shot back. You've been freelancing for what, 2 years? Still no steady job, no savings. You can't expect to live here forever. My sister, Madison, laughed softly beside her boyfriend. Told you, Dad would get tired of funding your little art phase. It's not a phase, I snapped. It's a business. I'm a designer. Design doesn't pay bills, Dad said, flipping his steak like he was flipping my dignity. Madison's already got a job, an apartment, and a fiancé. Maybe you should take notes. I stood up slowly, heart pounding but voice steady. So you want me gone? He shrugged, casual. If you can't contribute, yeah. Maybe that'll teach you how the real world works. Mom tried to step in, whispering, Mark, please, not here. But he kept going. It's time she learns. I raised 2 kids, not 2 dependents. I remember the taste of metal in my mouth, the sting behind my eyes, and the way everyone tried not to look at me, except Madison, who was smiling like it was her birthday.
I didn't yell.
I didn't cry. I just nodded. All right, Dad. You want me out?
Fine.
You'll get your wish. Madison laughed. You can't even afford your car insurance, Emily. I looked her right in the eye. You'll be surprised what I can afford. Then I left. I went upstairs, packed my things in silence, and by the time the sun went down, I was gone. No goodbye. No scene. Just me, my laptop, and 3 duffel bags of clothes. What they didn't know, what they never cared to ask, was that I had been working quietly for months with a real estate investor on design projects. He loved my work so much that he offered me a small partnership in one of his companies. I thought it was nothing big at first, until my payout came in. $214,000. I stared at my screen that night, in the tiny studio apartment I'd just rented, and felt my chest tighten. My whole family thought I was broke, worthless, a failure. Then I saw the investor's latest listing, a property bundle that included my parents' address. My childhood home. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in timing. So I made a call. Then I signed a few papers. And just like that, their house, my house, was mine again. I didn't do it for revenge.
Not yet.
But I wanted them to understand how it felt when someone you love treats you like a burden. And that lesson was about to be delivered, right to their doorstep. I'll never forget the morning my dad called me. His voice sounded tight, like he was forcing calm through panic. Emily, he said, did you know anything about some letter we got from a real estate company? It says our house was sold. I leaned back in my chair, coffee steaming in my hand. Sold? I asked, acting as clueless as possible. That's strange. He let out a dry laugh. Yes, strange. It even says new owner requests vacant possession in 14 days. Crazy, right? I could hear Mom in the background, pacing, her voice cracking. Mark, tell her it's not funny anymore. Funny. That word made me smile. Because it wasn't funny, it was real. I took a slow breath. Dad, I'm sure it's just a mix-up. You should probably check with the bank. I did, he snapped. They said the property was under an investor's name, Hartwell Development or something, and it was legally sold last week. Emily, that's the group you used to work with, isn't it? For a second, I didn't say anything. I wanted him to feel the silence, the kind that makes your stomach drop. Then I said softly, yeah, I know them.
He paused.
You know them? More than you think. I hung up before he could speak again. For years, my father's voice had controlled me. Every decision, every dream I tried to chase. That day, the click of me hanging up felt like freedom. 2 hours later, I got a text from my mom. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake. We'll talk tonight. Don't do anything rash. I didn't reply, because nothing I did was rash. It was deliberate, calculated. That evening, I called the courier service and asked if the notice had been delivered. The man confirmed, yes, ma'am. Delivered and signed by a Mr. Mark Henderson at 3:42 p.m.
Perfect.
I asked him to deliver another envelope the next day, just one sheet of paper. I typed it myself, word for word, and signed it by hand. You said if I couldn't pay rent, I should move out.
So I did.
Kindly vacate my property within 14 days. Emily Henderson. It was short,
Sharp.
and exactly what needed to be said. By the following morning, my phone was full of missed calls.
Mom. Dad.
Even Madison, who'd texted, "What the hell are you doing? Are you insane?" I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I went to meet Mr. Harris, the realtor who'd helped finalize everything. He handed me a thick file and smiled. Congratulations, Ms. Henderson. The property is officially under your ownership. The previous owners will need to vacate by next week. Would you like us to handle the communication? I shook my head.
No.
This one's personal. He nodded politely. He didn't ask questions he didn't need to. The satisfaction on my face said enough. That night, I drove back to my parents' neighborhood for the first time since I'd left. The streetlights looked the same, but the feeling wasn't. Every mailbox, every familiar window, I saw them differently now. I wasn't coming home as the daughter who got scolded at barbecues. I was coming back as the owner of the house that once pushed me out. Their lights were on. I could see silhouettes moving inside. My mom pacing. Madison waving her arms. My dad sitting motionless, probably staring at the letter again. I didn't knock. I didn't want a scene. I just slipped another envelope into the mailbox, sealed with the property's legal paperwork and my business card clipped to the top. The next morning, my mom showed up at my apartment. I opened the door, and she just stood there, eyes red, voice trembling. "Emily," she said, "why are you doing this?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. For years, she'd watched my dad belittle me and never said a word. Always silence. Always pretending it wasn't that bad. "Because you both taught me to stand on my own," I said softly. "Now I am." Tears filled her eyes. "You can't just take our home." I nodded gently. "It was never yours. It was the bank's. You just didn't read the fine print." Her lips quivered. "You're punishing us." I stepped back, shaking my head.
No, Mom.
"I'm teaching you what happens when you underestimate someone who's been quiet for too long." She didn't have a reply. She just whispered, "Your father's heart can't take this." That one stung. I looked down for a moment, then said, "Then maybe he shouldn't have broken mine first." She walked away without another word. That night, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker, thinking about the girl I was just weeks ago, the one who got humiliated in front of her whole family. The one who had nothing but a duffel bag and pride. Now I had power. But more than that, I had peace. When you've been talked down to your whole life, there's a moment, a single, perfect moment, when everything flips.
You're no longer the weak one.
You're the lesson they never saw coming. And that's what this was, not revenge, but a lesson. They taught me to leave. I taught them what happens when I do. The next week, I drove back to the house, my house, for the first time since everything unfolded. The air was thick with that strange tension only families can create, the kind that hides behind fake smiles and forced greetings. The driveway was packed with cars. I guess word had spread. When I stepped out of my car, they were all waiting on the porch. Dad, arms crossed like a general. Mom, eyes swollen. And Madison, leaning against the railing with that same smug smirk she wore at the barbecue. "Emily," Dad started, his voice already sharp. "What kind of stunt is this?" I walked toward him slowly, my heels clicking on the concrete. No stunt, I said evenly. Just paperwork. He took a step forward, his face flushed. You can't do this to us. This is our home. Your mother's memories, your sister's. My humiliation. I cut in. Don't forget that part. His nostrils flared. You're being vindictive. I almost laughed. Vindictive? Dad, you stood in front of our whole family and told me to move out like I was some freeloading stranger. You didn't even lower your voice. Mom finally spoke, trembling. Honey, please. Your father didn't mean it like that. I looked at her, eyes narrowing. Then how did he mean it? Because I remember exactly what he said. If you can't pay rent, move out.
So I did.
And then I bought the place where that sentence was born. Madison let out a dramatic sigh. You're acting like a movie villain. Come on, Emily, you think this makes you powerful? You just look petty. I turned to her, calm but cold. You laughed when he told me to move out, remember? You said I couldn't even afford my car insurance. You made sure everyone heard it. Her fake confidence faltered. It was a joke. I nodded slowly. So was this. I gestured toward the house. A really, really expensive joke. Dad's voice rose. You're not keeping us out of this home. I built this place with my hands. You built it, I said, but you signed it away when you refinanced the mortgage without reading the contract. You put your trust in a deal you didn't understand. Sound familiar? That's exactly how you treated me, like I wasn't worth understanding. He froze. For once, there was no comeback. I handed him an envelope, the final paperwork. You have 5 more days to move out, I said quietly. Or you can stay and pay rent like anyone else. Rent, he repeated, stunned. Yeah, I said. $1 a month. I want you to know what it feels like to need mercy and to be shown it. He stared at me, speechless. Mom looked away, tears glistening on her cheeks. Madison muttered something under her breath, but no one cared to hear it. For the first time, the silence wasn't mine. It was theirs. Heavy, uncomfortable, full of regret they couldn't swallow fast enough. I turned to leave, but Dad's voice cracked behind me. You really hate me that much, huh? That made me stop. I turned halfway, the wind brushing my hair across my face. I don't hate you, I said softly. I just finally learned how to stop needing your approval. He didn't respond. He just stood there, his pride collapsing into something fragile. Mom took a hesitant step forward. Please don't let this break the family. I met her eyes, the woman who stayed silent every time he humiliated me. It already broke a long time ago, I said. I'm just the one who stopped pretending it didn't. Then I walked to my car. My hands were steady, but my heart wasn't. The truth is, revenge doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it just feels necessary. As I started the engine, Madison shouted from the porch, You'll regret this, Emily. No one wants a family full of enemies. I looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. You're right, I said quietly. That's why I'm done being part of one. The tires rolled down the familiar road, and every tree, every house blurred past like ghosts of who I used to be. I had walked away before, broke, humiliated, angry. But this time was different. I wasn't running from anything. I was walking toward peace. That night, I got one final message from my dad. Just 5 words. You've made your point. Congratulations. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. But for the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to breathe without someone else's permission. And that feeling, that quiet, complete freedom was worth every bruise that got me there. 5 days later, I drove back one last time. The moving truck was parked outside. The yard that once smelled like summer barbecues was quiet now, just the wind brushing through the trees and the sound of boxes being carried out. Dad was standing by the porch steps, staring at the sold signs still planted in the front yard. His shoulders looked smaller somehow, like the man who used to fill every room with his voice had run out of words. He didn't notice me at first. When he did, he sighed. So this is it, huh? Yeah, I said quietly. This is it. Mom was nearby, taping the last cardboard box shut. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. Madison stood by the car, arms folded, pretending not to care. For a second, no one spoke. Just the dull thud of moving boxes and the crunch of gravel under shoes. Then Dad said, "You won. You happy now?" I shook my head slowly. It was never about winning. It was about finally being heard. He stared at the ground. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. I thought you'd get scared like always." "Maybe I used to be," I said. "But the day you told me to move out, something changed. You made me believe I had nothing left to lose." Mom walked over, her voice shaking. "Emily, your father said things he shouldn't have. We all did. You were right to be angry, but—" "Mom," I interrupted softly, "I'm not angry anymore." She blinked, confused. "You're not." I shook my head.
No.
"I'm just done trying to prove my worth to people who only see value in what I can pay." Dad's jaw clenched. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, my tone calm but cutting. "You wanted to teach me responsibility. Well, lesson learned. I just ended up teaching it better than you expected." He exhaled deeply, looking at me for a long moment. "You've changed." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just stopped shrinking to fit your idea of success." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded paper. It was a lease agreement, 1 year, rent set at $1 a month. I handed it to him. "If you ever need a place to stay, you can come back. This house will always have your memories. Just not your control." He looked down at the paper, then back at me. For the first time, I saw something different in his eyes. Not pride, not anger. Something closer to respect. "Emily," he said quietly, "you really became something, didn't you?" I smiled faintly. "I always was. You just never looked close enough." Mom reached out, her hand trembling as it touched my shoulder. "We're proud of you, honey," she whispered, "even if it took us too long to say it." Madison said nothing, but when our eyes met, her smirk was gone. Maybe she finally realized life isn't a race you win by staying in the lane your parents built. When they drove away, I stood at the gate for a long moment. The house looked the same, but everything felt different. Lighter, freer, quieter. I walked through each room. My old bedroom, the hallway where Dad used to hang his work awards, the kitchen where laughter once covered tension like wallpaper. Every echo reminded me that sometimes losing everything is how you find your strength. As the sun dipped low, I stood in the doorway, keys cold in my hand. I whispered to the empty air, "I'm not the girl who left crying that night anymore." Then I locked the door behind me, not to keep them out, but to finally keep myself in. Because the truth is, revenge fades, but self-respect? That stays. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone's permission to feel proud of who I'd become.